Tempted.
Good evening and welcome to the September 24, 2008 Civil Service Commission meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Devine?
Here.
Commissioner Coleman?
Here.
Commissioner Gantis?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Here.
Chair Abkarian.
Here. Next.
Reading of the minutes.
Any motion?
Move to approve and dispense with reading.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
you gotta move quickly, Art.
Boy, they're fast.
Mr. Devine.
On item number 9,
And then number 9.
page 3 of 7,
3 of 7, okay.
where it says, Commissioner Devine says so-and-so, the last sentence, it says, items be rescheduled at a later time when issues are resolved, and I wanted to add in there Mr. Abkarian's issues.
You want to add what?
Well,
Where are you?
That's
Where are
going to be a
you?
long list.
What is it on? Say that again?
No.
Which paragraph are you?
this is second paragraph under 9, where it says, Commissioner Devine said that since
okay.
Chair Abkarian couldn't participate in the discussion and would possibly be able to comment at a later time, he recommended that these items be rescheduled at a later time when Mr. Abkarian's issues were
Okay.
resolved, is what
Okay,
I
sorry.
said.
Okay, Mr. Abkarian's issues are resolved. Oh, that's...
That's never going to happen.
That's asking for a lot, but okay.
Not covered under a charter.
I would, Mr. Devine, put in there when Mr. Abkarian's issues were resolved, or we have the return of Jesus Christ. That was a joke. We could.
That's okay, too.
That's too. Yeah.
Okay, with that change,
Second.
motion and a second with the amendment. Maybe a roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gantis?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Chair Abkarian.
Yes. Next item, please.
Oral communications.
None. Next.
Eligible list established.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, the item before you are the 3 eligible lists that have been established since our last meeting 2 weeks ago. As you can see, we just have 3 lists that have been established. They're all promotional, relatively small applicant pools, and ultimately small number of candidates on these lists. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead. Yes.
I don't have any questions, just a comment. These aren't relatively small. They're, in my opinion, when you have one application received for a senior planner, PW, traffic and transportation, and a total of 1 person on an eligibility list, it just sounds like a shoo-in for somebody to me. And I'm not saying it is, but, you know, senior planner, traffic and transportation, promo, 1 candidate, 1 person on the list. Just, it appears a little suspicious, in
Commissioner,
my opinion.
Commissioner Coleman, these are recruitment processes. These are promotions for individuals. As you know, that this organization does not have the ability to reallocate or simply grant someone a promotion. We do a process. We open the bulletin, and in some cases, when you do have and these are mid to upper management level positions, we're only going to get people with those specific qualifications, and
Okay.
As long as we don't tailor those bulletins to fit only 1 person, then we're okay, and we haven't done that actually.
No.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, next item, please.
Job bulletin for approval, senior administrative analyst and/or liability claims coordinator.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this item is a job bulletin for approval for the Senior Administrative Analyst Liability Claims Coordinator position. This is within our risk management section of Administrative Services. This bulletin is being brought before the Commission for 2 reasons. One, because in its previous recruitment process, this position was recruited for on a promotional basis. We are thus now seeking an open recruitment, and as you know, your rules require that when you change from a promotional to an open, that has to be brought before the Commission. The second issue has to do with the bulletin language. We're utilizing the classification of Senior Administrative Analyst, which is a generic job classification, which we have positions in all different departments, and there's some specific needs for individual with particular backgrounds in claims management, liability, insurance knowledge for this particular position. So as we go to recruit openly for this, we want to make sure that bulletin addresses those particular needs. And those needs are reflected largely under the experience requirements. With that, this process, we hope to recruit for it soon. We have an opening as a result of a vacancy earlier this year. And if you have questions, be happy to try and answer them. Ms. Martin from my staff worked on this process along with two individuals from our risk management department here. If there are any specific questions.
Who is the risk manager?
The risk manager, his name is Tom Malooly. That's the gentleman with the white beard.
And do we have to? We don't have to approve the bulletin in this or anything else.
Yes.
Yes, you
Do
do.
have to approve it.
Yes.
Because we have changed language.
I want to
Yes.
have a language in here to ensure that, as aggressive as we get in some of these things, just to keep in mind that some of these employees are very long-time employees. I don't know, some sensitivity class or something, where people aren't, we don't just hire investigators, spend a lot of money and then find nothing, really. So I don't know what we can put in the bulletin to just ensure that we are, as aggressively as that we're prosecuting this liability claims, and I have my opinions about where this should go, but to ensure that we understand that these aren't criminals that they're going after, that these are employees of City of Glendale with most 90%, 99% with legitimate claims, and to have some training that they're not treated like they're criminals. So I don't know how to put that in here, to have specific, does the city have a specific class about how we handle these issues, how sensitive we are, that maybe somebody could be 20-year
employee, and it is good to have very aggressive claims handling, but then at the same time to ensure that they're not being treated as criminals when they get to that point. And maybe you can come up, maybe.
This is Paul Keel. He's executive analyst in our risk management section.
Good evening, Commissioners. I want to kind of clarify a little bit because the position will be reporting to me. I report to Mr. Malooly. Risk management is broken into different components for the city: our work comp section, our safety section, and our claims liability and insurance services. And so I think to clarify what this position will be doing is that it is not any law enforcement activity. So it has nothing to do with code enforcement, the police department. This person will be handling claims that are filed against the city for alleged damages that happened to an individual, a trip on the sidewalk, auto accident, types of those things. That this person will do the investigative workup and then work with the legal department to come to a conclusion as to what actions need to be taken to defend the city to reduce our exposure to loss. So does that...
And this person actually handles the claim during that process?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a form.
It's a civil,
It's a civil issue. And there is a very set process. When somebody files a claim against the city, they must go to the city clerks. Then the city clerk logs it in. Then it gets passed through to, currently the function is being done in the legal department through our reorganization and setting up our risk management. This function is moving to risk management, and we will work side by side with the legal department to reduce the city's exposure and ultimately save the city money.
And which, it says, would it be under liability claims, small claims in this
Yes.
chart here? Okay. Any other questions?
Move for approval.
Is there a motion, second?
Second.
Second, roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gantis?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Chair Carrion?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item, please.
Human Resources Activity Report.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is your annual activity report of all the various functions that are handled through Human Resources, particularly those that relate to recruitment testing and those activities that can be broadly defined falling under the Human Resources Department Civil Service functions. This report should be familiar to those of you who've been on the Commission for a while. We do this at the end of each fiscal year. It's a lot of information detailing our activity relative to recruitment testing, number of applications received, the employee relations activity, the various separation, reasons for separations, training, all the different things that this department handles. I open this up to any questions you may have, but before doing so, just point out a few very broad trends that we see in this year's report. And again, this activity is a snapshot of the 07-08 fiscal year, which just concluded. The report has a column next to it comparing that particular year with the previous year of 06-07. And it does enable us to see some trends, or at least changes from one year to the next. But in general, what we are seeing, or what we've seen this year, is a increase in number of applications, which might be a reflection of the general state of the economy. More people looking for work, with conversely a decrease in the number of actual exam processes that we've had to do, which also is a reflection of a bit of a slowdown in our hiring process. Not much, but we have had a slight slowdown in that end. We also show, at least internally, a significant increase in our training activity, and that's something that we're all very proud of, the training that we do provide to our employees. You'll see in that section of the report that there were over 4,000 individuals who participated in training. Now, we only have about 2,000 employees, so there were some people who went to maybe 2 or 3 classes in the year, but that's up from over just about 1,000 the previous year. Another area that we always look at is the turnover, which a lot of times that's a sign of the organization, its health and vitality, and to some degree people's satisfaction with working here. And we do see a very light turnover rate. This year the turnover rate was 6.03%. Looking at our salaried employment pool, that's down from 7.02 the year before. The turnover reached its peak 2 years ago with a 9.96, which almost a 10% turnover. That was largely due to a retirement enhancement that took effect in 2005, which caused a huge number of employees to decide to retire in that particular fiscal year. So, anyway, I could probably go on and on with little stats and figures here, but unless you have any further questions, this report is for your edification, and at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Just a quick question. This report goes to the City Council?
Yes. It will go to the Council. I have it on the agenda for next week.
And these councils are reporting to the City Council by Civil Service Commission, which is required under our rules.
That's correct. That's correct.
Any questions?
It's not a question, it's simply a comment. If you take a look at personnel transactions in Section 4, page 2, new hires, salaried employees for fiscal year 2002 to 2008, 127, hourly employees, 144. So we're hiring more hourly employees than salaried. Same thing occurred, but to a greater extent in fiscal year 2006 and 7. If you move over to Section 8 on page 3, you'll notice that in fiscal year 2007 and 8, employee orientation for salaried employees, you had 128, and out of the 144 hourly employees, there was only 63 that attended employee orientation. And I don't understand those figures. I know we're, like every other entity, going through fiscal restraints, but it just seems to really, I mean, the city of Glendale has a civil service system, and when we're hiring more hourly employees than salaried, and the hourly employees aren't covered by the Civil Service Commission, they don't have the right to come before us. They can be fired internally without being able to grieve the termination. I just think there's something wrong. And again, that's just my comment.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gantis, Commissioner Gantis.
Mr. Coleman, we, as you know, when you were on your first time around, and we continue to do that, we diligently look after the hourlies and have diligently worked toward that goal. However, and I know you know this, we continue to have an ongoing need for hourly employees. For instance, library, I think their pages or assistants are all hourly. We have our summer programs for the pool, the lifeguards, the park assistants that are continually hourly, which is, I think, why we see the consistency in the hourly hires. In other words, we in the summer we have a lot of them we bring on, and then they go off, and then they come back on the following summer, so that you have a consistent number that are hired and not hired. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that translates into the training that many of them are these young kids, the youth workers. We have that youth program where in the summer they go out and they clean your hillside. By the way, if you've never had them do it, they are outstanding. They are wonderful young people. And if you need your hillside cleaned, that's who to call. Parks, I think, is who we call. So, and we get a lot of them to come back, so they don't need to be trained again. They've done it before, and we like that, because then we don't have to retrain them, and they can hit the ground running and do the work that's necessary. It's not civil service type of work, and but it's a continuous hourly, and that comes to us in the hourly reports. We see all of those hourlies that are still there, and this is a consistent number. What you're concerned about, I mean, obviously we still look at them, and we get that report, and we grill them. Those 1,250 hours, we're after them. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, the hourlies are those that are consistently hourly, that come back year to year, do the lifeguard, do the youth services, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm not sure that's absolutely correct. We had a situation a couple of meetings ago where Chair Abkarian requested that in the next report on hourly employees that extend the 1,250-hour limit and can work more via the approval of the city manager. Chair Abkarian requested to know how many years these hourly employees have worked. And I don't think we've got 144 employees working on hillsides or at the pool during the summer.
We don't have a pool, do we?
We have a...
So I mean, if we, and I'm not attempting to be combative at all. If that is in fact the case, if the majority of these 144 hourly employees that were hired fiscal year 2007 and 8, were working at the auditorium, cleaning hillsides, clearly temporary summer or seasonal employees, it should be delineated in this report. So the numbers don't appear to be what they appear to be, at least to me.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Coleman, we don't have that specific breakdown as to what specific category each of these hourlies falls under. Much of what Mr. Gantis said is true. We do have this large pool of summer employees that we do hire. Many of them do stay on and they work in other capacities throughout the year, but many of them drop off and they are no longer employed when September comes around and they go back to school or whatever the case may be, and then they come back in June to work in the camp programs, the aquatics programs. By the way, we do have aquatics programs. We utilize the pools at the high school, Glendale and Hoover High, but we have a very active aquatics program. So there is a lot of truth to that. But there are other hourly people who are hired either in a capacity where it's temporary, where we're not going to need their services on an ongoing basis. So we don't want to make them salaried employees if that the need for that position is going to go away. There are other positions that may have an ongoing need, but the hours required of that employee may only be half-time, or 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, or something like that. So,
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Is it going to be, what you said is we don't know what the breakdown of the 144 are. So if you request a report as to what those breakdowns are in the 143 and 144 and the timelines and all that, that would be something that would be, you have to go through a lot of, not a computer button you push and it gives you that kind of information out?
No, not really. We'd have to kind of manually go through and see what those job titles were, where they work, and whether or not it's truly temporary seasonal work versus people that we may need on an ongoing basis.
Commissioner Coleman, do you want to get a report on this to put your mind to rest, or do you want to just? Are you satisfied?
I don't want to overburden the HR department. That's for sure. They're as busy as they can be, but it just, when you see new hires and hourlies always outnumber the salaried, it just raises a red flag to me without some explanation. That's the only reason I brought it up. And on the same line, if you look at Section 4, Item I, pay rate changes, wage and step increases. For salaried, there's 639. For hourly, there's only 166. And then we've got an elective one-time wage increase, and that's for individuals that happen to hold the classification of hourly city worker and city resource specialists. And there's 86 of those. It just seems a bit... Without some type of explanation as to what these numbers really represent, I have concerns. Particularly when you take a look at Section 8 and see that Section 8 is on page 3. When you take a look at 144 hourly employees, of those 144, only 63, less than half, received an employee orientation class. You had 127 salaried employees hired, yet 128 went to orientation, according to this report. It just seems to me, based on the report, that hourly employees are once again being treated like second-class citizens in the city. And I don't know that for a fact. I'm just going by the raw numbers. And again, let me repeat, I know that, there's a fiscal crisis at hand. But I would like, some explanation or a breakdown. As Chair Abkarian indicated, if it's not too much trouble, and since this report only is presented to us once a year, I would like a breakdown of, the hourly employees that are hired, be they seasonal, youth programs, whatever. So there's some kind of explanation as to why we continually hire more hourly employees than salaried.
Okay. Mr. Doyle, why don't we it seems like Commissioner Coleman feels very strongly about this, and I can actually see the numbers myself, and if there is a question, so why don't we actually, when the calendar comes in, why don't we actually calendar this for us to get a breakdown of that 144 for 2007, 2008, as tedious as this might be, might eliminate any questions in the next 2 or 3 years during the reports.
I'd be willing to wait until next year or have that inclusion. I don't need anybody to backtrack on this. What we have here is what we have. I'm just asking that the next report give us a little more information as to why this trend continues to continue.
Continually continues to continue.
Sheriff Gary.
We can do that.
Yeah, Mr.
Sorry. One more recommendation maybe you might want to consider, Mr. Doyle.
Let me just,
I'm
if you don't
sorry.
mind, Mr. Mnookin, Commissioner Mnookin. So basically, Commissioner Coleman, you're asking for additional information for next year's report.
Correct.
Okay, thank
Or
you.
maybe like a categorizing what percentage of that hourly was categorized in what area?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next year's report will have what we would be basically, instead of getting a report now, we'll just get it next year with our report
Correct.
next year. Mr. Mnookin?
My recommendation was based on the report where it indicates Human Resources Department count and reasons for salaried employee separation from the city. The first column, which
What page are you on?
it doesn't have a page number, it's actually,
2 pages from back.
yeah.
Employee separation statistics?
Correct.
Thank you.
Where the first column is
The one before that, yeah.
to take another job. If, one recommendation, I mean, I would presume majority of them leaving is for another job. Is there any way to be able to take that to a subcategory, to at least try to identify, for example, and I don't know the process, if it's a difficult process, I understand, but if it's not, it would be nice to know, for example, to take another job due to a higher pay, or, I mean, I don't know how you conduct these. Are these exit interviews, or how do you obtain this information?
Yeah, members of the commission, this is ascertained. There's a separation process, and there's a form, typically when someone is leaving for whatever reason, and they simply check off a box, and if it's a resignation, they have to give the reason why it's a resignation, and if it's to take another job, that's really all the information we have. On top of that, though, there is an exit interview process, and that process entails a member of my staff sitting down with that individual and going over essentially how they viewed their employment here and some of the things that they think could be improved or changed, or if there's any problems or anything like that. And to some degree, they'll be pretty upfront with why they're leaving. They might say, hey, got a better job offer somewhere else, promotion in this organization that wasn't available to me here, and I took it. Or it might be, I hate my job, and I'd rather work at this other place.
Better
A lot of
benefits, I don't know if there's a way to try, because maybe we might be able to pick up certain things that others, other companies, other cities are offering in this particular category. Maybe we might be more competitive.
And we do look at that, if perhaps not on a statistical basis, but anecdotally, if we see these exit interviews, people leaving one particular department due to satisfaction or dissatisfaction or problems with management or something like that, we look at those things and say, hey, maybe there's a problem with that department. Or if it's consistently pay and benefits, like a perfect example was about 6 or 7 years ago, we were losing firefighters by the bundle. Literally, one after another were coming in to resign to go to other agencies, and it was a huge wake-up call to say that, hey, we're just not competitive in our pay and benefits package. This was a few years back. That was corrected, and we don't have that type of attrition any longer there. But we do take really look at the exit interview process and any trends. The individual person with, this issue or that, that's not necessarily going to...
That's going to be very hard to track, so
Yeah.
that I completely understand.
But,
Because we invest a lot of resources and
Oh, yeah.
to, anyone for some of these employees. lose them for one particular category.
Absolutely.
Just a recommendation.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? Okay, what's next?
Request to modify...
Thank you. This was a very good report, by the way, Matt. So I think whoever did the report, did you do it yourself, personally?
Of course. Mel, as you recall from the last meeting, Debbie Mallon
That's right.
was introduced, and she does a great job each year compiling all those figures. And a lot of the transactions and things that are addressed on there are a result of her work alone. So,
And we'll thank her on our behalf. What's next?
Request to modify commission meeting dates in November and December 2008.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a request we're having to modify some of our upcoming commission dates with regard to our meetings in November and the meeting in December. November, we traditionally cancel the second meeting of the month, the one that occurs the day before Thanksgiving, and I'm going to recommend that we do that unless there's a desire for the commission to retain that. There's another issue on the second week of November, which be the meeting that would ordinarily fall on November 12th. Myself and several members of my staff will be away that week at a conference. Really, there won't be any staff remaining. I think I've said before, we don't get out much, but this is a really, really good conference, which we try to attend, and get a lot of good information on legislation and legal updates and things in the employee relations field. So what I'm proposing is that to cancel the meeting from November 12th and the 26th, and see if we can schedule a special meeting on November 19th, which falls between those two dates, and just have one meeting on the 19th for the month of November. We've checked, this room is available. Just have to, of course, properly notice. If that's acceptable to the commission, I would certainly appreciate that. Additionally, we're also proposing the cancellation of the second meeting in December, which happens to fall on Christmas Eve, December the 24th.
We got to come in for that one. I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be there.
Dedicated guys. Huh?
These guys,
Well, let's talk about the first one first. The second one is tough. I don't have any problems of having it on November 19th if everyone else is okay.
I'm
Is there
fine.
any objections?
No.
Okay, done.
I think
We need to vote on this, Mr.
you
Braden?
Yes.
Okay, let's have roll call to move the meeting, cancel the meeting of November 26th and the 12th, and move the meeting to November 19th. Is there a motion for that?
So move.
Want to include
Second.
December 20, and you
December
else needs to
20th.
make the motion, but do you want to include December 24th in that?
Including December 24th in there. Who's making the motion?
I made the
Sam made a
motion.
motion. Any second?
Second.
Mr. Coleman seconds. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gantis?
Yes.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Sheriff Carrion?
Yes. Any other issue anyone wants to bring up? No? Okay. I think that's all we have for the, oh, no, I'm sorry, what's next?
Agenda forecast.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the agenda forecast is before you. As far as I know, everything there is current. And of course, the November 12th meeting will have that changed to reflect the November 19th. Have anything else you'd like to add? Any special assignments?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Gantis.
You know, I've been thinking over this issue we discussed at the last meeting about the request to hire outside counsel in our jurisdiction over investigations. And while I think it's an important issue, I'm just not sure it's an issue that we need to really, I want to give it some time to kind of percolate, so to speak.
Percolate, okay.
With something like that. So I would like, with the permission of the rest of the commission, at least with respect to the outside counsel, I'm not sure what the second issue, I'm not, if we're bringing back our old memorandum on that to discuss it, that we maybe take that off the agenda, and possibly after the first of the year, we'll re-agendize that issue.
You don't want to agendize it now? You want to do it after April? So it doesn't become, I mean, I don't understand why we don't, you want to do it after April so it doesn't become a political issue in the city of Glendale?
That sounds what I was thinking about.
Okay,
yeah.
so why don't we just have it on the second meeting in April?
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, any issues? Yes.
Well, I have some issues since I was initially opposed and still am to the concept. I do have some other ideas on how we can accomplish the same thing without having to hire the outside counsel, and I'd like to be able to discuss that before we ask our attorney to do the labor putting together this report. So I know we can't talk about it tonight because it's not agendized. I agree with Commissioner Gantis that we can postpone it, but I'd like to postpone it with the understanding that we would hold off asking Mr. Braden to prepare a report until we can discuss some other issues and perhaps some other alternatives.
You have until second week in April to make any recommendation. Maybe sometime in March you want to bring that up again when we're doing their review of our agenda forecast.
Okay,
Fine.
perfect.
But again, with the understanding that we won't ask Mr. Braden to labor on a report that may not be needed.
He might have already started on it, but okay. We second week in April, we will discuss if it's necessary for us to actually have outside counsel in reference to that. Now, how about the other two items, the last item, discovery of employee misconduct during a hearing? Does that need to be postponed as well?
I think that's just a regurgitation of his previous memo.
Oh, okay.
And so I think it goes hand in hand. That's why now I remember I agendized it, because it may be that we were going to discuss parts of that when we talked about the outside counsel. So at my specific...
But this item has not been agendized.
Which item?
The
Jurisdiction?
misconduct of an employee during a hearing.
It was agendized at our previous meeting, and we discussed it, and I remember now specifically asking that it go back on the agenda in case we wanted to discuss something about that, so that we couldn't be cut off from the discussion. So I think they go hand in hand, and those should both go to the second meeting in April.
Why don't we have it in the last meeting in April to discuss what direction we will give Mr. Braden?
Okay.
Does that
That works.
Okay? Mr.
Yes.
Milliken?
I guess so.
We have at least 3 votes on it, so
It is what it is. Doesn't bother me. I ain't lose sleep over it.
okay. Do we need to vote on this as well?
You can just give direction to staff if that's a consensus of the commission.
I think the direction was just given. So, what's the next item, please?
Reports and information.
Mr. Chair, I would like just a brief item to, we handed out a motion that was approved by council last evening having to do with the appointment of a senior assistant city attorney for water and power. That occurred last night. This was done under the suspension of competition provisions within the charter and civil service rules. Both the charter and the rules require that that type of appointment be that the commission be notified of that action. Again, the action was taken last night involving the appointment of Christine Godinez to the position of Senior Assistant City Attorney. She's working out of Water and Power for the City of Glendale.
Is she here?
She is not here.
Additionally, they come to introduce themselves. But
This is the second time we just get an announcement. Not that we really, it makes a huge difference, but if we're going to be, I really don't care about knowing about this unless if they're going to be here. Really, I no longer want to have any of these reports personally given to us, if this person is not going to appear, so what? I mean, if the city council makes a decision, finalize the decision, is it required under our rule to actually...
It's in the charter.
We're required to notify you.
Our
of
charter
this
has
action.
to be reported to you.
So if you would like in the future for these individuals to attend, we can. And
I don't
and
know. I mean,
no one-
if you're going to be introduced to someone, shouldn't we see who they are?
I think so. I think it's important that the public see them also. This is the time and place. They're employees. They're civil service. They should come and they're doing the public's
we will
work.
do this in the future, but no one told her to attend, and no one
No,
from the
I know.
attorney's office. So please don't hold it against her or
I will hold it
Mr.
against
Howard.
you.
Absolutely. Dock my salary.
Or you can duck mine.
No, I'll take it out of mine. I insist.
What's next?
Civil Service Commission and our staff comments.
Commissioner Manukian.
I just wanted to take this opportunity. Usually, at least most of the meetings, when we only hear about complaints and issues about different departments, but one of the programs that has really caught my attention that I think has been a very successful program is been the reserves with the Glendale Police Department. And, I feel very strong for both the fire department and the police department for what they do for us. And I think the reserves for the city of Glendale, first of all, my hat's off to them. These guys, most of them work a full-time job and then come in, put on a uniform for $1 a year and go out there and basically protect the city for us. And I really don't think they get the credit that they should. But just besides that, I think they've been very successful in going out to the segments of the community, and they've been able to recruit in areas that the department itself maybe might not have that much luck. So what I wanted to do was, if possible, for us to get some kind of a report or some feedback as far as about the whole process, about the entire program of itself, so we can help promote that and we have a better understanding, at least for myself. I don't know if my fellow commissioners are interested in finding out more about the program, but I'd be very interested in finding out all the details. Anyone else that might be interested?
I'm interested. I don't know anything about the reserves.
I'm very interested. I think it's a great
I have
idea.
no idea what the reserves do, and I have no idea what the qualifications are. My understanding is they go through the same training, but it's...
Same training.
If by any chance, I don't know what, jurisdiction, we have to ask them to give us a report, but I would love to hear as to how they recruit, what they do, and how they... And they're not civil service servants, right?
No, they're volunteers.
Basically volunteers.
But they go through the same
Exact
training. They put their lives on the line just the same as any other police. You would not know the difference when you see them on the street. So I really think they deserve...
Well, let's put it on the agenda
Please.
and get a report.
We can have the reserve coordinator come and perhaps bring a few of the reserves in. You can meet them and they can go over their
Not
program.
we don't need a big presentation, just a...
There are only currently about, I think, 10 or 11 police officer
In the whole
reserves.
city?
Yes.
I take my hat off. I don't know why somebody would do it for $1, but God bless them. I think that they should be given as many badges as the city has to give them, to be very honest with you.
Thank you.
Good job,
We'll
Sam.
bring that back.
No, I mean, I really think these guys deserve...
It's not on the agenda, so,
we'll
made
talk
a brief
about it.
announcement, and that's fine, and
We'll talk
a
about
full discussion.
Okay, we get the point.
Congratulations.
We get the point.
Okay, what's next?
Closed session.
I'm sorry.
I do have one under the staff comments. Staff member, this is Alex Soto, he's HR associate, would like to make a brief comment about a big event occurring this weekend.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Alex Soto, Human Resources Associate, And I would just like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to this weekend's Relay for Life event put on by the American Cancer Society. The event will be taking place this Saturday and Sunday. It begins on Saturday at 10 a.m. and it will go through the night. It'll wind up on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. It will be taking place at Shoal Canyon Baseball Field. It's at 3800 East Glen Oaks Boulevard. And it's going to be a great community event. There's going to be a kids camp, raffles, food, yoga, meditation, all sorts of activities, and it's for a great cause. So hope to see you all there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it this Saturday, this coming Saturday?
This coming Saturday, the 27th.
As you can see, Mr. Braden has already badge right there.
Our chairman will be there representing the entire commission.
Right, that's right. Your chairman would be in 2 AYSO games, coaching and roughing, trust me.
That's okay.
But yeah, that's a great event, and I hope that everyone joins you. Thank you for the announcement.
We need walkers to do the 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. shift, so if anyone's available.
I will. I understand. Thank you.
There are no AYSO games at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
That part is true. That part is true. I'll definitely look into that, Mr. Doyle. What are you doing at 2 or 2:30 a.m.?
Don't want to know.
I signed up for 1:30 in the afternoon, so I'll be there. And
Early sign-up.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, what's the next item?
Closed session?
We have one closed session item. We will be reporting out, but it would not be televised.
Correct. And just for the record, Mr. Chair, the closed session item, which is identified as 11B, Public Employee Discipline, that is it's not ready to go forward tonight, just so the public knows why we're not discussing that one.
Thank you. Anyone that's not, okay, thank you very much.
And we are concluding our TV portion, aren't we?
We are concluding our TV portion.